lot of guys are struggling with fear, regardless if they want to admit it or not.
Buckle up, it's going to be around. Fear is always going to be a part of your journey, but it should never sit in the front seat, and it should definitely not drive.
The things that I find universal for most men are things that are out of our control or fear of the unknown.
The less you actually have to do, the more room for fear and anxiety.
I get hit by an 80,000 pound truck. I said out loud, please Jesus, not like this.
I have decided I will die here. I want to continue on that journey more than I wanted to live, so that you don't continue on in your life with all that head noise.
I absolutely wanted to die. I told myself suicide was an option for weak men. I become so familiar with conflict and all these things, I didn't fear it anymore. If you fear something, gain experience in it. Start small, build into it.
So we're going to jump right in. All right, I got some really heavy questions from the community because you've impacted, obviously, thousands of men inside of our community. A lot of guys are struggling with fear. Regardless if they want to admit it or not, people are struggling with fear. So you two have been voted as the two most fearless men in the community. And so we're going to start with you. Okay, so the first question is that you've both faced real life or death combat. What's something that you learned about fear that most men will never understand from the perspective of being in real life or death situation?
I'd say for me, and I've given a lot of thought in and around this, is there's no final thing that is universally feared by all men. Now, there are some trends. So there's some things that trend as the most fearful thing for most men. So for an example, that would be like public speaking or an adversarial interaction with another man. Like those rate high. Fear of fire. These are fear of heights. These are things that show up, reoccur regularly for many men. But there's no one thing that is universally feared. So you can't say, everyone is scared of snakes, or everyone is scared of heights, or everyone is scared of boxing, or because that's not true. There are some men who aren't. So that led me to think of like, well, what element of fear is universal? Because I believe fear is universal for all men at some level. We just experience it at different levels. And that really boils down to me for two things, for me personally. And I don't know if this is absolutely correct, but I say, the things that I find universal for most men are things that are out of our control, so fear of a control, or fear of the unknown. And sometimes those things kind of mix together. So I'll give an example of that for me. So as a kid, I grew up on a military base, Marine bases. My dad was in the Marines. And I'll just say growing up in the 80s, on a Marine base, right around the time the movie Red Dawn came out and Karate Kid, it was a very violent place. Like that's how we sorted things out on the playground. Like I was in a ton of fights growing up as a kid. Most of those I wasn't looking for because I normally had to fight up in age, and that was due to my physical appearance. I was always a really big kid, so I was always large for my size, both tall and heavy, but I had a very young face. So a lot of the other kids would mistake me for a soft kid of their age. So for example, I'd be in third grade and I'd run into like some fifth or sixth graders and they would think I was a sixth grader because I was so tall and so big, but they just thought I was a very soft sixth grader. So they'd see me as an easy target. So I'm getting in these fights, at the bus stop, on the way to school, on the playgrounds, playing football at the park, whatever. I get in fights with these kids all the time and they're often much older than me, which as a kid, I found that very fearful. So I was very fearful of fighting as a kid. And the more and more it occurred that I'm ending up in these altercations with the other kids, the less fear as I was experiencing. And I believe that was due to the root of understanding. Because the first time you go into a fight as a young kid, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what it feels like to get punched in the nose. You don't know what it feels like to be thrown in a headlock. Maybe you've seen another kid in it, but you don't know what that feels like. You don't have any real knowledge of it. And frankly, the more often it happened, and I mean, I got beat up a lot as a kid, and the more often it happened, the more comfortable I became with it. A kid bloodies your nose, you're like, okay, that hurt a little bit, but it didn't hurt any more than getting hit by a baseball, and I'm not scared of playing baseball. And then, or I got thrown in a headlock. Like that doesn't really hurt at all, right? It's just restrictive. It doesn't really hurt at all to be in a headlock. So the more and more experience I had with that thing, the less fearful I was of it. And then once I kind of released the outcome, so as a kid, being a younger kid, I started to look at these fights. I would try to avoid them, but when they would happen, I would just go into it very open-handed because I didn't feel like I had anything to lose. I'm like, I'm a third grader and I'm fighting this fifth grader. And if he beats me up, I don't lose any street cred amongst my friends. Like I have no desired outcomes. I desire no control in where this goes. And instantly my fear just kind of vanished from that to where I became the kid at a very young age where my friends would be in a park and the older kids would show up and they'd start picking on us. And I'm like, all right, someone's going to get in a fight. And I'd be like, well, it might as well be me. And I would be the one to step up. I'm like, I don't want to fight you, but if that's what has to happen, like, all right, let's do it. And I'd start taking off my jacket, my gloves, and that would kind of unnerve some of the older kids, right? Like, why is this kid so comfortable with this, right? And then that actually kind of de-escalated and then I realized, like, oh, the more willing and more free I walk into these altercations, the less often they occur. And for me, that's how my journey of fear kind of started.
Awesome. And so before we move on to your answer, Jeremy, what I'm hearing for the audience is that one way to overcome fear is to practice the thing that you're afraid of.
To become familiar with it.
Become familiar with it.
The more familiar you are with the thing that you fear, the less of a hold it has had on me. That's my experience.
So if you're afraid of heights, should you jump out of a plane?
I would say maybe not jump right to that, but maybe work towards that. So maybe a fear of heights would start with, and again, I'm not a psychologist or anything, I don't know, but I'm going to say like the exposure, like, what height are you scared of? Where does your fear of heights begin? Are you fearful to step up onto one step? Probably not. So let's spend some time on one step. And then once you're comfortable there, can we get to 2 steps or 3? And then now we're on a ladder. And then now maybe we're in a second story building. And now maybe we're in a tree. I think it's small steps, small doses. I know there is some science back to that, and they tie that into stress inoculation. So stress can be like an inoculation you would get against a virus, right? They introduce a little bit of the virus in your body, and then you are inoculated because your body gets used to that virus. You fight off a little bit of it, and then your body gets better at fighting off a larger, stronger version of that virus, right? So stress and fear are the same. As you get inoculated to it, as you experience that scary thing over and over again, you start to build up resistance to it.
Awesome. Jeremy.
Yeah, I think for me, the question kind of hits funny. Like, well, I don't know what every man knows or doesn't know, so it's a little funny. And I think that the thing I would sort of say to, if I were talking to a group of men, the thing I would say about fear is that, buckle up, it's going to be around.
Yeah.
And so really there, because I love what you're talking about, like inoculating yourself against like the paralysis that comes from fear or whatever, but the fact of the matter is there's still going to be fear present. It's just the way in which you're choosing to orient yourself to it. And that's what Coach John's talking about, right? Is this stress inoculation where like you keep stepping into, like the psychologist called this idea of like someone's afraid of snakes, and so you lock a person in a room full of snakes until they get over it or whatever. That's called flooding. It's a psychological technique known as flooding.
Does it work?
I think it's worked for some people. I don't know that it's not like traditionally used. The inoculation technique that is used more frequently, as I'm aware, which is like this incremental, you're incrementally increasing the stressors and then pointing and then talking those things through and like showing someone, look, you did it. You drove to the supermarket and everything's okay. Like you can do this. And so there's this slow, gradual climb towards, healthy outcomes there. The point I'm talking about is I guess more broader, this idea of like, and So if you're going to do anything of value in this life, you're going to have to step outside of your own comfort zone. Stepping outside of it, you're stepping into the unknown, because if you knew what was out there, you'd be more comfortable with it. And so the reality is, it's the way in which, my view, it's the way in which you orient yourself to the fear. Do you let the fear take over, or can you, because I don't believe that fear is inherently bad. Right? Like, wired inside of our DNA is this thing. If you see a 3-foot length of old garden hose in tall grass and you look over and it startles you, you didn't have time to even recognize what was going on. That stuff's wired into your DNA, because 300 years ago, if you got bit by a snake, you died. And so did the people 3,000 years ago. And so for thousands of years, humanity has experienced snake bite means death, almost exclusively. Snake bite from a poisonous snake means death. It's only been somewhat recently in the human experience on Earth that we have the ability, like antivenom has even become a thing. And so, but for all the previous human existence, that snake bite meant death. And so then wired into us, same thing as the fear of heights, where your belly gets weird and you get nauseous and you start getting dizzy at heights. Your body is signaling, careful, be aware, like danger. It's throwing flags for you. The same thing happens with the old piece of hose in the grass. Your body is throwing the signal, careful. Can you say that's bad? I don't say that's bad. Like, that bit of fear is not bad. That's good, man. It helps keep me safe and keep me alive. And though, if I let it run, Jordan Peterson has a quote that says, fear is always going to be a part of your journey, but it should never sit in the front seat, and it should definitely not drive. And so recognizing that fear is going to be a part of the process, but it's the way in which I orient to fear that's going to decide whether or not it hamstrings my life or it helps to keep me safe and mitigate risk. So, like, if I were to jump off this building and die, I know both of you would be so sad. So sad. Absolutely. But if I were to jump off this building and die, you wouldn't go and report to all the other ruck guys out there, hey, yeah, gravity killed Jeremy yesterday. Right. No, yeah. You would say that Jeremy failed to properly relate himself to the laws of gravity. It wasn't gravity's fault. It was my fault for not properly orienting myself to the laws of gravity. And I say the same thing is true. Fear is going to be a part of your journey. Fear is along for the ride. There's not much you can do about it. What you can do about it is not let it sit in the front seat and not let it drive. And if it does, you're just failing to orient yourself to the thing that is going to be there. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to do anything worthwhile in this life, you're going to have to step out into the unknown. You're going to have to take a risk. And there's fear inherently involved in that process. It's the way in which you orient yourself to it. It's going to make the difference.
I love that. And I would add to it, when I hear there's a small nuance, is also there's a lot of power in facing your fear. Because if you run from the fear, it's not going to go anywhere. And in my experience, it's going to actually probably follow you. Mm-hmm. And it's going to always be there. Mm-hmm. So the thing that you resist, it's going to persist, right? The more you run from that thing that's fearful, 100%. The more it's going to chase you and the more it's going to haunt you.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So quick pivot on that before I ask my next question is, what about for men out there who are afraid of the Antichrist, afraid of AI, afraid of other religious systems that aren't, this is speaking specifically to Christian men, how would they face their fear of the Antichrist? How would they face their fear of people who serve a different God? How would they face their fear for AI takeover?
I would say hashtag first world problems. Mm. Like, do you remember a time where, like, wasn't the AI threat that we were thinking about or whatever? It was like, how do I eat today? And so a little bit of first world problems there. So if what you're doing is sitting around ruminating about the takeover of AI or the Antichrist, cool. That's not me, man. That's not, like, do I consider things? 100%. But if you're sitting around orienting yourself in such a way, whether you're orienting yourself to that fear of AI takeover, is such that it mutes your existence. Well, what you've done is write yourself a check for a muted life. Mm-hmm. And no thanks for me. Yep. I just think it's one of those things. Like, if you were worried about where to get water today, or where to have shelter today, or where to get food today, the whole AI takeover thing isn't if you're a man in this life, Mark Driscoll has this quote, right? Men are like trucks. Men are like 18-wheelers. They're made to carry a load. And so if you're a man in this life right now, and you're carrying a load of a family, a load of a business, of a community, of a church, 100% these sort of like even ancillary threats in the distance, I'm paying attention to. But they're not governing my thoughts. They're not running. I use those considerations to make decisions for sure. Like with the AI piece, for instance, like my daughter's 15 and she's talking about college. She's very, very smart and is already thinking in those terms. And she's talking through things about what it looks like to have a career and something that would be meaningful. And she's talking about, well, what about a doctor or a lawyer? And I'm not fearful of the AI threat, and I can see it for what it is. Hey, I believe that jobs like a lawyer are going to be largely taken over by AI in the coming years. I believe those jobs are going to be in large part taken over by AI. So I would be mindful of that, big girl, as you're thinking this stuff through, And that's the extent of the amount I worry about it. Like I see it out there, I see the threat, and it's too easy. I have enough runway to steer this thing in a way that means I don't like drive over the broken bridge or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like I can see it down there. And to say that it's something that governs my life or takes up an inordinate amount of thought, yeah, no thanks.
Mm-hmm. For me, I agree with that 100%. Like I love it. And I believe idle hands can lead to anxiety.
Yeah, if you're not carrying a load, you got plenty of time to think about all this and ruminate. Yeah.
So the less you actually have to do, the more room for fear and anxiety by just not being focused on purpose, calling, whatever it might be, craft.
By not carrying a load.
Yeah, I heard a quote. Why it's great to work out in the morning is to tame the body, to exhaust the mind, if anything else.
Mm-hmm. Love that. For me, so I don't devote any energy to any of the things you just mentioned. Like they're like not.
We know this.
Yeah. Those aren't even on my radar. Like they don't.
John lives life to the fullest.
Yeah, like I don't worry about any of those things. And I would think that, and I used to. Politics, for example, like not necessarily. I mean, back in the day before I came to this realization, I mean, AI didn't exist, right? That's how old I am. But so the stuff that would get to me would like politics. I used to listen to talk radio a lot. That stuff would get me stressed out, and I'd get irritated. And one of the greatest tools and understandings for me that helped me overcome all of that is laid out really well in a book. And before I name this book, I'm going to just throw out a little disclaimer here. It is a little, for lack of a better word, spiritual or a little new agey, a little bit, tiny bit new agey, this book, but it is 100% compatible with a Christian lifestyle. And that book is Loving What Is by Byron Katie. It's a book that we advocate here in this community, incredible book. And there's many great lessons in that, but one of them is that there's 3 types of business in the world. There's your business, there's other people's business, and then there's God's business, right? So there's 3 types of business. So in my experience, when you start having anxiety or fear around things, it's normally a sign that you are out of your business, because that's where anxiety originates, is when you are out of your business. So if I wake up and I'm planning a beach trip with my wife and it's raining and I get anxiety over if it's going to rain all day or if it's going to rain the day of the beach trip, and I get anxiety about the weather, well, that's something I have no control over. So therefore, that's not my business. That's God's business. God decides when it rains and when it doesn't rain, not my business. So by me getting in his business and start thinking about how things should be, that creates anxiety because I'm out of my business. When I start worrying about what you're going to do with AI or what someone else is doing with AI, I'm out of my business. That's not my business. My business is what I do with AI, right? So that would be my experience, is just staying in my business. So if I start getting that check engine light, which shows up as some anxiety or some worry, I just have to check myself and be like, okay, this thing I'm thinking about that's causing this unhappiness for me, whose business is it? Do I have control over it? Because if I have control over it, then I should take responsibility and stewardship of that thing. If it's not my responsibility, it's not my business, then just let it go and don't give it any concern at all.
Yeah, it reminds me what you guys are saying, right? Ruminating, looking down the line, worrying about business that's not yours. I mean, the Bible is clear, and I don't believe it's a request. I believe it's almost like a command to meditate on these things, right? Meditate what you're thinking about, what we're thinking about, anything that's kind and gentle and true and praiseworthy and good, right? This is what we're supposed to be filling our minds with. It's really interesting. Cool. So question that comes up for me, what's a time, Jeremy, that you experienced the height of your fear? What was the scariest point of your life, and how did you push forward in that moment?
The scariest moment in my life. This feels strange, but I can't, like, there's not an instant that I feel like was the scariest moment. Like, there's nothing that stands out for me as the scariest moment of my life. And like, I've had some doozies. Yeah, it's interesting. The thing that comes to my mind that I was in the 82nd at the time, and I was on I was in the scout platoon. So I was in a platoon, like the sniper element for our battalion. And our team was tasked with taking this water tower, which is like, in retrospect, like, what are we doing climbing a water tower? But it was like a confidence target town. So we really weren't anticipating like a lot of pushback. And so me and a few other guys, we climbed this water tower, and we get up to the top, and it took like hours to climb. It was so tall. We get up there and we're on the railing, and somebody called in like a show of force, which is like a fast moving aircraft comes through and they drop the chaff, and it like sounds really loud. The aircraft's coming over. They're coming real low and they're coming real fast, and they drop all this stuff. It looks like fireworks coming out the back of the aircraft. And they do it as what's called a show of force. Like, we're not actually shooting any bullets. We're just showing you like, hey, we can get close to you. We can make things happen that are really loud. It's just like it's truly like a show of force that we're capable. So we're in this water tower, and we had set in that thing for like, I don't know, we were in there a day and a half, 2 days at this point, up on this water tower. And like watching this town as the battalion, the line units were moving through the town. And this aircraft came by, and it dropped chaff one night, and it was so close to us. Like, I could have hit that airplane with a tennis ball. Like, I could have thrown a rock at this aircraft. It was so close. And it came by so fast and so loud that it shook the water tower. And I remember thinking to myself, it's going over. Like, the water tower, we're gonna fall. Like, the whole thing's gonna fall over. That's the thing that comes to mind. Yeah, like in retrospect, it kind of seems silly. Like this, I don't remember actually being scared of death, though, is the thing. Like, I thought like, this water tower is coming over, it's gonna fall, but I don't remember necessarily being like afraid of death. And I don't at any point remember being like scared of loss, even though that's happened too. Yeah, it's a strange thing. That was an interesting question. It's like giving me pause. I don't remember a scenario. That's the only thing I can come up with. I don't remember a scenario that was traumatic in its occurrence, such that it left a memory with a pin in it, like with a flag in it, saying like, "Hey, come back to me. I'm trauma." If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now it's got me wondering. I wonder if I'm a psychopath. Yeah, I don't know. This is what comes up. I can't remember anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to nail down one thing also. I've joked like I'm like that cat with 9 lives. Like, I think I can count about 9 different times in my life where there was a moment where I was like, oh, this is how it's gonna happen. like you know, you get that moment of clarity. You're like, oh, this is how it happens.
Yeah, mine
right?
was choking on a chicken nugget in my friend Marcus's house.
No, it's a real
for
thing.
You guys,
like,
it's diffusing bombs.
I can think of a couple of like about 9 times I can think like, oh, yep, this is how it happens. But one in particular I can remember, which is this is actually kind of a funny story. If my brother listens to this, he's gonna get a chuckle out of this. But one of them in particular, I have to give a little bit of backstory to explain. So I was a state trooper for 22 years, and I have a healthy respect for the danger of traffic, particularly when you are a pedestrian, right? I don't think even cops, like especially like city cops or county cops who don't spend a lot of time on freeways, even they don't totally, because I've seen them do some crazy stuff. And when you work as a state trooper, man, like you see what a car does to a person, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not pretty. It's really ugly. And, you hear like city cops talking about like, oh, you got to approach the suspect vehicle on this side because you have a tactical advantage and everything and you don't want to be shot. And I'm like, hey, look, bro, you are way better being shot, in today's technology of modern medicine with a vest.
Than catching a 70-mile-an-hour Buick to the chest.
Yeah, exactly. Like you get hit by like a 35-mile-an-hour vehicle, like that is not what you want. Like, right. And even if you survive that, it's probably beginning a life that's going to be really difficult, right? Yeah. So. And I've been a pedestrian on the side of the freeway and had cars come off the road, hit signs. I had a car hit a sign like 10 feet from me. The sound that made, I can still feel in my body if I close my eyes. Like I've seen cars be hit. You hear the screeching tires at night and lights coming out of the darkness. Like I have a very healthy respect for vehicles moving at high speeds. So with that, I was late to the game learning to ride a motorcycle. I got married. My wife loves motorcycles. She's like, we should buy a motorcycle. I'm like, I'm all in, baby. Let's do this. So I buy this Harley. I take a course, great course. And now I'm a new rider. And I wasn't good at it, but I had to learn how to do it. So you got to get reps in. So I'm riding the bike. And long story short, I get hit by an 80,000-pound truck. I get hit by a truck tractor in my first month of learning to ride a motorcycle. And basically what happens is I'm in the slow lane. He's in the lane to the left of me. He passes me and he starts merging into me right where the fifth wheel is. And as a new rider, I'm only going about 45, 50 miles an hour. And I see the truck coming at me and I look at it, which is the sin of motorcycle riding because you have to look where you want to go. I'm looking at the truck. I can't take my eyes off of it because it's coming at me. I'm trying to turn right to get away from this truck and it's coming at me and I can't get my eyes off of it, right? Because I'm a new rider. I'm just fixated on this thing coming at me. And it's going by so fast. It's so much faster than I am. I'm just watching this thing go by. And I know it's going to hit me because I'm not getting out of the way fast enough. And I remember so clear that I can still hear it. I said out loud, please, Jesus, not like this. Because it's like, that is like, I can think of a million ways in my life that I could have died. And this is the way I don't want to have it happen is I'm hit by a vehicle. Like state troopers don't die this way. Like I refuse to go out this way. Right. And I'm like, no, not this way. And I said it 3 times. And then the DOT guard, which is the rear guard on the back of a truck tractor that keeps cars from going up underneath it, that bar, and this is a God story too, that bar hit the grip of the motorcycle handlebar that I was holding. Mm-hmm. So somehow that rear bumper went under my elbow, under my hand, and hit the grip that I was holding and did not hit me. Somehow it hit the bike. And when that happened, because the truck weighs 80,000 pounds and I'm at 800 pounds with the bike, the whole bike just literally disintegrates underneath me and I'm ejected. I go forward. I go through my little windscreens. It was like an old style Harley. I go through the windshield. I actually do a jiu-jitsu front roll and come up. And I'm running and I'm running at 45 miles an hour, which is way too fast for these legs to go. So I look like a kid running down a hill, and I'm running. And in my mind, I'm like, you're not safe yet, John. You got to get out of the lane. Don't get run over. So I'm running. I get to the shoulder and then I'm standing there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm still here. And then I'm like, so then I do an op check. I start checking, is everything here? So I'm doing the old, we teach, I'm patting down, I'm looking at my hands, there's no blood. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm here. And it hit the bike so hard that it actually split the frame in half. So the frame of the bike splits in half. Every single piece of the bike ejected. There wasn't a piece on that motorcycle bigger than a grapefruit. It was just pieces everywhere. So I'm just standing there like, oh my gosh, like what happens now? Long story short, my guys show up. One of my guys that works for me shows up. He's like, "Hey, Sarge, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm great. I can't believe it. I'm alive." So then the fear comes in, right? So I am very hesitant to get back on a bike, right?
Even today?
Oh no, I'm way over it. So yeah, that was a couple years ago. But at that moment, I knew that I was hesitant to get back on a bike. Like the thought of getting on a bike, it scared me. Like I thought, oh my gosh. So I knew like I had to get back into it. If this is something I want to do, I have to get back into it. So I literally bought a motorcycle, I think 4 days later. I bought another motorcycle 4 days later, and I was right back on it. And I started small. Just riding around the surface streets. It's slow speeds, no traffic and stuff. But then the funny thing about it, and this is where my brother ties into the story, is my brother asked me, he's like, "So how you doing on the motorcycle?" And I go, I just got a little bit of head noise. And he goes, "Head noise? What are you talking about?" And I go, head noise. I got some stuff rattling around in there. And he goes, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And I go, "Well, like when I'm riding on the motorcycle on the freeway now, anytime something passes me on my left, my eyes close and my head twitches." And it's like involuntary. So I can look in my mirror and see a car coming up behind me on my left, and I can tell myself, keep your eyes open, stay on the thing. And sure enough, as soon as it gets right into my vision, my eye closes and my body twitches. And that continued for maybe a couple months. And I'm like, head noise. And my brother's like, "You are like so not a normal person." He's like, "No one knows what you're talking about when you say head noise." And I'm like, "Yeah, my people know what I'm talking about." It's like, when you're a cop, you go to a scene and you see something really bad, and the guy's like, "How you doing?" You're like, "Oh, I got a little head noise," but it'll go away. It'll go away.
So that idea of getting back on though, immediately. So the 82nd Airborne, if you have a failed jump attempt, this is really cool. Like I love this about my alma mater there. If you have a failed jump attempt, so you jump, your main chute doesn't deploy or something, you have to deploy your reserve, or you have a cigarette roll or something, and so then you come in hard, or if you have some sort of parachute malfunction, they will spin up another aircraft, refuel that aircraft, put pilots in that aircraft to put that jumper back on the bird to get them out of a bird again immediately. Like you can't finish the exercise on a loss. So that you don't have a jumper with the head noise.
Yep.
You must get back on. You must go jump again. It's not like up for debate. If you're healthy, like if you're not injured, your rear end is getting back on an aircraft with a new parachute immediately, and you're going to exit the aircraft. So that you don't continue on in your life with all that head noise.
Yeah.
My father-in-law had a similar scenario, got sideswiped on a motorcycle by 2 teenage girls, not 300 meters from his driveway. He pulls into his house. His wife gets on the phone with my wife, so her daughter gets on the phone with my wife, and they're talking about it, and he was still kind of shook up in the house. It was 15 minutes ago or something. And I hear this from the other room and was like, "Tell him to put his junk on." And I go run to my motorcycle, throw my stuff on, and I Tokyo drift my rear end over to his house.
Right.
Because I understand the importance of this thing. And I pull into his house and like, "Hey, get your helmet on, let's go." And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I'm not asking, get your helmet on and get downstairs." And I drug him down the stairs, and he was kind of starting like, "Hey, listen, let me just, we'll go tomorrow," something like that. "Nope, we're going right now." And so 30 minutes ago, 2 teenage girls almost took his life, not 300 meters from his house, but I drive over there, get him back on the motorcycle immediately, and now he rides just fine. And I'm not saying it's because of that, but what I am saying is that we don't create fertile ground where all that garbage can grow, right? We don't create fertile ground where all the head noise can grow. Like when those things happen, we must get right back into it so that we don't create the fertile soil.
It's such a great lesson. And I'd say good law enforcement agencies are the same way with shootings. Mm-hmm. If a man or a woman, if a police officer is in a shooting and they discharge their firearm on duty, you got to get them out to the range right away and have them do it again. right? Because often a combat shooting is very, very stressful, and that's something your body wants to resist and not ever do again, because it's an awful experience for most people. And you got to show them like, hey, you got to get familiar with it.
You can control this thing. You're in control of it. You don't have to be afraid of it. Yeah.
This is such great parenting, is what I'm hearing in this. Is I think the mistake some parents make, especially in this generation of helicopter parents, they're constantly trying to protect their kid and keep everything from them. If you have a kid who's bit by a dog, right, the worst thing, in my opinion, to do is to shelter them from there on out from every dog. Because what happens is if you encounter 25 dogs in your lifetime and the 26th dog bites you, at that moment, you have very strong evidence that dogs are bad, right? You've met 25, the 26th one bit you. You have some evidence that dogs can hurt you. Well, if you snatch that kid up and then make sure all the people around you in your life don't have their dogs out when your kid comes over, now every time that happens, you're adding more evidence that dogs are bad. So now you take them to your friend's house and you don't let their dog come near you. Now that's 27 pieces of evidence, or another piece of evidence. And you just stockpile the evidence of fear. It's the exact opposite. If your child is bit by a dog, it is so important to get that kid around other dogs that don't bite in the future and start piling on the evidence that like, hey, that dog is an outlier. You've met 26, one bit you. Let me introduce you to a couple hundred more that don't bite, right? That's how you overcome the fear. By avoiding the fear, running from it, it's going to provide more evidence, and that fear will chase you your entire life. And then the next thing, you're a dad, and you're telling your kids you can't get a dog because secretly you're still scared of them.
It sounds like a message to also don't judge a community by one bad character.
Oh, exactly. Well, I'm not going to get into that, but...
Well, I think about people who blame Jesus for actions of people inside of the church.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me, no, try another church. Meet another brother. Meet another believer. Right. Final question for both of you. 2 separate questions, by the way. Something, because I have personal insight on both of you.
Okay.
So I think the audience really enjoy this. First question is, Jeremy, you talk about the grueling experience of being a Green Beret. To become a Green Beret is absolutely just...
It was a lot, yeah.
It was a lot.
It was a lot for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned that they almost entice you to quit, right?
They just make it available.
They make it very
I
available.
I'd say it's a welcome invitation to quit.
They make that path comfortable for you.
Right. So it makes me think about that. It's almost like fear is what keeps people from being successful, right? Like the success of fear, like actually, like, what if this works? In the same way of like being afraid of something, and it's what keeps you from doing it. What keeps people from, like, are people afraid of the good? I heard a quote, and it said, people are not afraid of God's judgment. They're afraid of God's goodness. Because you're afraid that once you get to the mountain, there's nowhere to go. You can only fall from it, right? And so I think we should always pray to God for more mountain to climb. But in any regard, you talk about that process of becoming a Green Beret and that success that's going to come. You said yesterday that you would rather die than not get that funny little green hat.
Yep.
I heard you say that yesterday.
Yeah, because it took all of that from me. Like some guys, it doesn't take that much. Like some guys just have it, and they can do all the physical stuff. They are there. Like, and some guys, it's not that much. I was never the most. I was never the most of anything besides the most average, I guess. Like, I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the strongest. I certainly wasn't the smartest. I wasn't any of those things. But yeah, when it came time, so selection specifically, they call it SFAS, Special Forces Assessment and Selection. It's shy of 30 days, so it's shy of 1 month long, and there's like different things that happen inside the week, and they're very much like individual events.
So just to set it up, you're already you're already a sergeant in the Army.
I was already E5 in the Army, and I was coming from the 82nd. Yeah.
Okay, so you've already been through a ton, And now you're going through like an additional course. It's like
I was already in the Army. I'd already been deployed, already in E5, already like in the scout platoon, in the 82nd Airborne as an infantryman. Had been in it several years at this point, and and so then I decided to go to selection. I went to selection, and while you're there, it's very much like an individual event, and you don't have a name when you're there. You just are given a number. So I was roster number 223, and so you don't have a name. You're not Sergeant so and so or Captain so and so. You're just roster number 223. They don't want to know your name. They're not asking your name. You're just roster number whatever, and so. Things that happen in there are very much like individual events. And then you get to, like, the SEALs have like Hell Week. You've heard of Navy SEALs have Hell Week. Everyone's heard of that stuff. There's been plenty of movies about it. Well,
anybody can do a week.
Yeah. Well,
I just picked up some haters.
We're gonna get some emails.
Green Berets
from the gate guards of the Navy SEALs. Yeah.
Green Berets have what we call Team Week. So Team Week happens. And at the end of Team Week's brutal, and it's very much a team-oriented exercise, but it happens mostly on land. And so Team Week is absolutely brutal, and you stay outside the whole time. So it's not like you're coming back and forth. You stay out of doors, and you run this brutal gauntlet for like a week. And at the end of that, you do what's called the trek. And the trek is an unknown distance, unknown time standard. So in the military in general, you're given a task with conditions and standards. Here's the task, and here's the road you need, here's the backpack that you need, and here's the weight of that backpack that you need. And then the standard. You'll do this ruck in X amount of, you'll do this ruck march in X amount of time. Right. And so in the special operations world, you're just given a task. Walk. And so we're told we have to take our bags, our backpacks, and they have, 65 pounds in it or so. And you've just done like a week of brutality. Like everyone's broken already. And then you start this exercise called the trek, and you start at about 1 a.m. or so. And then you start walking. And only instructions they give you are you'll walk between the cones. So they have these 2 road cones. So if you come into a 4-way intersection on a sandy road somewhere, there'll be 2 road cones off to the left-hand side, let's say. And you have to take a left. I'm going to turn from here and walk through those 2 orange cones. And if you see the truck, you have to get in the truck. So the truck is like the sweeper, but you don't know what the time standard is. But the truck is slowly creeping along the event and will pick up anyone it comes in contact with. So you have to be in front of the truck. But you don't know what the time standard is for the truck. So you just have to give your best. So you have to self-govern yourself and give your best. And how gross can we get on here? Can we get gross?
Please,
awesome.
Go for it. Raw.
So I get like 2 or 3 miles into this thing, and I have diarrhea all down my leg. Right down my leg, into my boots. And I'm not like 2 miles, 3 miles into this thing. It just goes. Like there wasn't any matter of stopping or like stopping, go off to the woods. There was no time for any of that stuff. As soon as I realized like, oh, hey, something, okay, there it is in my boot. It just was virtually instant. And so that's a really terrible way to start things, especially I don't know when this thing's going to end. Like it's going to end maybe tomorrow. Like I don't actually know when it's going to end. And so, but I remember what you're referencing is like at one point in this thing, I had gotten so tired and my eyes were so heavy, I couldn't keep them open. And I remember walking, and I would walk on this like sandy road, and I would close my eyes and just keep walking. And when I started hearing pine needles crunch under my feet, I would open my eyes up because I knew I had veered off the sandy road. I was so smoked. And, some of these guys like just burn right through this thing, FYI. Like this is just my experience. But I remember having a conversation with myself on that at that moment, saying basically like, okay, everything in me wants all this pain to end, and no, like I have decided I will die here. Like I will die on this road. I'll die here, and they can take my lifeless carcass back and do whatever they do with it. But I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have kids, and like. I wanted that. I wanted to continue on this journey. At that time, I wanted to continue on that journey more than I wanted to live.
So is there motivation there for fear of failure, or is it?
I think for me at the time, a lot of it was ego.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that in conjunction, would you say that fear of failure for any man is related to ego?
Well, to be honest, I think that depends a lot about the man. Like, so a fear of failure could also mean, if you grew up in a household that was very performance based. So like, let's say if John and I are in relationship with one another and I have love units and John does well and I give him one love unit because he did well, and he doesn't do well at something, he fails at something, then I withhold that love unit. If you grow up in a household where you received love units when you did something good and you received nothing when you did something bad, then what you learn in that instance is in that circumstance is that when I do things, when I excel, when I perform, when I hit the home run, when I score the winning goal, when I do those things, I feel like mom and dad love me. When I do those things, I experience love from them. And when I fail, when I miss the shot, or when I fall down short, or when I skip practice or skip school, get bad grades, then I experience a withholding of love units. Then what we do is we end up training that child to grow into an adult that that sees where if I want love, connection, intimacy, it's through me being good. So it becomes performative. And so some people can then go out and execute at a high level because they desire love so much. And the way to get love is to perform at a high level. And so to fill the love gap that's within me, because I want love, I want connection so badly, then that means the only way I'm worthy of love, the only way that someone could love me as deeply as I want to be loved, and the deeper I want to be loved, the more I must perform. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if I only perform a little bit, if I just do good, then I get good amount of love. If I want great amount of love, I have to go do great. Mm. So when we have that sort of performative mindset, then people can show up, they can overcome, people will do the darndest things for love.
For love. And there's nothing you can do to perform to earn any more love than you already have from God.
100%. Christ came to die for us while we were yet still sinners. Okay. And even Paul goes on in Corinthians to say that it's by God, lest no man should boast, right? That it's by God's power for God's glory. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that no man should boast, that has nothing to, your salvation has nothing to do with you, except for the only thing you've provided to your salvation is the need for it.
The need for it.
Yeah.
100%. And in that same regard about fear and the fear of not being loved, for parents out there, the best way to get your child out of fear is giving them unconditional love, because the word says perfect love casts out fear.
Can you love in their failure? Like, can you love your child and not be okay with behavior, with some of their behavior? Jesus did the same thing with the woman at the well. If you take a look at the way that Jesus reacted to the woman at the well, she comes up to the well in the heat of the day because she was an outcast from the community. She couldn't come up in the cool of the morning with the other women. She was outcast. So she came up to the well and she encounters Jesus. Jesus, the Bible says, spoke to her with 100% truth and 100% grace. He didn't make it okay. He didn't placate. He didn't diminish the fact like, oh, well, I understand, like, you were so lonely that you're sleeping with this other guy. You're living in this house with this other guy you're not married to. I understand because you were so lonely. He didn't make it okay. He spoke right to the heart of the matter. He put his finger right on the thing. I know you're living with a man that isn't your husband. That's right. I know you've been all over town. And the Bible says he spoke to her with 100% truth and 100% grace. And as a result of that interaction, she went back into town, told the town about Jesus. This man knew things about me no one could have known. The whole town comes out and meets the physical human Jesus Christ. Like, if you can find a way to follow Jesus' example with your kids, with your spouse, with your coworkers, with the people you disagree with, whoever, if you can find a way to love while someone has messed up. Can you love the heroin addicted weird uncle? Can you love him? Not make it okay that he's doing drugs. Can you love your kid when they've been suspended from school for the 3rd time this year? I'm not saying make the behavior okay. I'm saying that can you address the behavior while still having your child experience love from you?
Amen.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's in that I say that like a healthy relationship with worth and value for the child can come out of that kind of experience. A child can grow up with a properly oriented sense of worth and value, recognizing their worth and value isn't from their performance, but rather it's something more intrinsic in them than their performance. Mm-hmm. It's that they're loved on a who they are basis, not on a what they do basis.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's a great point to mention. If you are lacking unconditional love in your life, seek God first. You're not going to receive any love like that ever from anyone. If you don't know Christ and you're listening to this, absolutely just ask him. Don't believe anything you hear on this podcast. Go look for yourself and you will experience a love that will just break you down to, it'll make you like
but the other stuff is fake.
Putty.
Yeah, so like when I perform well and I get accolades feel like love, but it isn't. We have a separate word for it called accolades. It's called affirmation. It ain't love. It's affirmation. Man, great job. And it can feel loving to us. Affirmation can come alongside love, but they're cousins. It's not love. Affirmation isn't love. It's why we have a different word for it.
Yeah.
And so love, can we love is not, can we affirm? And when you have a child who is chasing affirmation, thinking that it's love, it will consistently be unfulfilling to them. Like it can't fill, affirmation can't fill the gap that love leaves.
Amen.
Yeah.
1 John 4:8, I believe, says, if you do not know God, you do not know love, because God is love. God is not affirmation.
Right.
No, it doesn't say that part.
Love is patient, and there's a way. Like there's a litmus test for love. It's patient. It's kind. It's not self-seeking. And so, if what you're chasing, because it can be so misconstrued. All the affirmations and accolades from doing well can be misconstrued as love. But that if we look at it, it's not actually love.
Amen.
I love this. This is one of my favorite Bible teachings. I'd like to say one thing on it is a couple things. The first is I don't think it's really a true test of your capacity to love when someone is doing positive things for you, right? So when your kid is scoring the touchdown or killing it in gymnastics or dance or cheerleading or whatever your kid does, an A on a test, when you show love in that moment, you can show love in that moment, but it's not a true test of your capacity to love the way Christ did. It's not, you can only show your capacity to love in the dark moments. That's the only place you can test yourself. And the reason this is one of my favorite teachings is it's so relatable on the daily, and there's so many educated Christians that I know that can share maybe word for word, maybe they can quote the verses of the parable of the woman at the well, but they don't live it in their life. They're not living it with their kids. And an area that I know of, that we both know of this, that models this really well is actually military boot camps. Military boot camps are so good at modeling this style of love, and they do it in the senior drill instructor or the father figure of the drill instructors. So when you're in boot camp, there's these multiple drill instructors, and normally there's 3 or 4 of them. In the Marine Corps, they call them green belts or the heavies, and they're just there to cause misery and suffering and pain and consequence, and that's all they are. That's all they do, and they set the tone for it. But then there's this other guy. He's the father drill instructor. And when he disciplines a really good one, when he's disciplining the troops, he does it in such a loving way. He does it in this way of when the recruits make a mistake that is going to cause a consequence for them, and which is normally going to result in pain for them.
You can see it grieve his heart.
You can see it grieve his heart. And what that produces, that true love, and the military knows this, it brings out the best in men. They know this. And when a good senior drill instructor sees them do the thing they're not supposed to do, when they fail an inspection or they mess up a drill motion or, they fail a PFT or whatever it is, that whenever they fall short and he gets that grieved look on his face and says, "Oh, I love you so much. And because I love you, I'm going to have to hold you accountable." Those recruits will become teary-eyed and feel so upset that they let him down because they're feeling that exchange of love even in their correction. And that's what we should be striving for with our kids, is when our kids, if your kid comes home late, if you get big and yell and scream and get angry, there's no love there. You're not expressing any love. But if you can look at that kid and be like, "Man, like, I love you so much, and it concerns me so much when you're out at night past your curfew because we set these rules for you, and like, it grieves me that I'm gonna have to lay the consequence for you, but I love you so much that I have to do this for your benefit." And when your kid really feels that love, like, holy cow, like, mom and dad really love me, and that's why I'm getting in trouble for being out late. That's where the magic is. That's where they can experience Jesus in their home from their parents.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I once heard Tony Evans say, "Love is not like."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's like,
different words, man. Different words.
Yeah. He says, "You don't love chocolate cake. You really like chocolate cake."
Yeah.
So, thank you. Are we okay on time for the event?
Yeah, we're getting close.
Okay, cool.
We
So,
need to go shortly.
all right. So I think we learned that love is what is the primary. It should be your focus, not your fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And the things that motivate you. Man, I did want to ask you one question, but I feel like this is totally veered into a different direction.
We can edit the tape. We can figure it out.
I know. I was really moved, and I'll be vulnerable because nobody on camera knows who I am right now. But, these guys are mentors to me, and I was struggling with anxiety, right? I was getting married. I was very nervous about it. Had never even kissed my wife, right? And we did not kiss until we got married. And I was like, am I making the wrong decision here? And I was afraid. And I asked you, Coach Jon, how did you become fearless? Because if one thing that I experience in you as, and both of you truly, is fearless. And that's such a foreign concept to me, personally. How did you become fearless?
I appreciate that. And I don't know if fearless is the best word to describe me. Maybe a better description be I'm very adept at managing fear or managing my own fear, right? And this is I remember the story I shared with you, and it's a personal story for me too. And before I share this, I want to apologize to all the state troopers in Riverside in the early 2000s that were particularly working the B-Watch shift, because they were the victims of a lot of the story that I'm getting ready to share. So I'd love to apologize to those guys and the couple ladies that worked that shift. But I learned to overcome fear in a very unhealthy way, and it just was kind of a byproduct at the end. So I came out of the Marine Corps with a pretty healthy dose of PTSD and survivor's guilt in and around the death of some of my friends in bomb disposal. And I wasn't aware of it. I carried it like a silent passenger in the backseat of my car. Actually, he was probably in the front seat of my car. He was probably sitting in the passenger seat next to me. And I drove around with that guy for a lot of years. It tore a hole in my marriage, in my home life. It showed up at work. I mean, I got on as a state trooper, even though I was carrying this. I guess maybe I was managing it so well that it got through. I was completely unaware of it for years. But what that resulted in is, I had survivor's guilt and I wanted to die. I absolutely wanted to die. I was struggling with suicide ideation for years, constantly imagining how I could die and what the world would be like without me, imagining my funeral. Like, I spent a lot of time in a dark place thinking about these things, trying to manage it with extreme exercise, trying to manage it with alcohol, being a social butterfly, being super active. And I just couldn't shake my desire to end my own life. Man, I wanted to do it. But I also had this thing in the back of my head that I had decided, because I'd had lots of friends from the military who had taken their lives. And part of the coping mechanism I built around that is I demonized them, because it's something that I'm struggling with. Like, I want to kill myself, and then, you know, Jesse kills himself, and now I'm mad at Jesse for doing it. So now I made him the bad guy. And the way I did that is, in my mind, I told myself that suicide was an option for weak men and soft men, and I'm not a weak man, I'm not a soft man, so I won't do that. So now I'm stuck, because I've decided suicide's bad. That's only something that weak men do. Yet I want to die. So I came up with a great plan, right? And this is like a subconscious plan that's running in the back of my head that I'm kind of unaware of, to be honest with you, at the moment. And what that resulted in is me going out of my way, looking for ways to get killed. But I wanted to be in control of it. I wanted to die the way I wanted to. I wanted to die in a hail of gunfire or in some great, big, huge, heroic way. So I was using my career at the time as a police officer as my vessel for that. And what that looked like was putting myself in incredibly dangerous positions, doing risky things, driving above my ability, just doing ridiculous things. And the reason I started this off with an apology to the men and women of B-Watch and Riverside is they saw it. I know they saw it, because now looking back, I remember some of those guys speaking into me, and they're like, where were you when you made that stop by yourself? Like the worst neighborhood in our whole beat, and you're out there making traffic stops on your own at 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday? Like, what are, right at shift change when all of us are back here at the office? Like, what are you doing? And I had a story for that too. I mean, in my head, I wouldn't say it to them, because they were the senior guys on the shift. I wouldn't say it to them, but I'd say, in my mind, I'd say, oh, they're just not willing to do the job the way it needs to be done. Right? I had it in my, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do the hard work that I'm doing. I'm going to change the world, right? Like, all full of pride and arrogance and the whole thing. And meanwhile, just out there putting myself in positions, trying to get myself killed. Mm-hmm. And I lived that life for a long time until I found healing through coaching and the therapy and the counseling and the things I got into. And I finally found healing for those things. And once that desire to be killed was removed from me, what I was left with was all of these experiences, which had basically fear inoculated me. Because I had put myself in so many dangerous situations, and I become so familiar with conflict and all these things, like I didn't fear it anymore. Like I just absolutely, and I can say this at this point in my life, like through the martial arts I've done and the work I've done on the streets, like I just don't have fear of people. I'm so familiar with people, and I'm not saying that I couldn't be killed by one. Absolutely I could be, but I just don't have any fear of it. And then you combine that now with my great trust in the Lord. Like I don't fear death, because I am very confident and very familiar with the afterlife, and I know I have eternal life. So now that I have, I've removed all those things, I've removed the unknown. Like, what happens if I die? I know what happens if I die. So I've removed the unknown. So there is no unknown. And now I've removed the unfamiliarity. I know what it feels like to be punched. I know what it feels like to be threatened. I know what it feels like to be outnumbered. I know all these things, and I'm okay with all of them, because I'm okay with the outcomes, because I feel confident with it. So that's a long story, and it's around it. It did not come in a healthy manner. I do not advocate that for anyone. But I believe the process is replicable. Right? You can replicate this process. And that is this, is if you fear something, gain experience in it. Whatever that thing is that you have fear of. You have fear of public speaking, then talk in front of people. Start praying out loud at restaurants or wherever you are, right? Pray out loud over meals, right? If you're scared of being heard by other people, if you have a fear of public speaking, if you have a fear of conflict, develop the courage to talk to someone about something they said that you don't like exactly how it sounded, right? Have the courage to have that conversation. Start small, build into it, right? If you're fearful of, for your personal safety, right, of being safe, walking out at night and everything, take a martial arts class, right? Slowly learn about the thing that has a hold on you. And as you become educated in it, it'll have less control over you. And then also release the outcomes. Know what's in your control and what's not, and just love what is.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
This is a really great conversation. And And if you don't know the Lord Jesus Christ, you're listening to this, both of these men probably would not be here if it wasn't for the Lord. And if you come to a Rise Up Kings event, you can hear Coach Jeremy's testimony. You'll hear Coach John's testimony. And you'll be like, there's no way they survived on their own. So,
True story.
We praise God for them. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share this video with somebody who you think will bless them. And change a man, change the world.